If you listen to my story and my testimony, you know that I moved to California as a young 23-year-old just out of nursing school. And I lived with my brother Howard in Hermosa Beach. We were kind of wild and crazy then. My story begins like this. When I came to know the Lord, I started going over to my brother Howard's apartment and sharing all my journey with him. And all I could talk about was Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Well, at the time, he didn't want to hear about that. I'm thinking back to the first couple months that I lived with my brother in Hermosa Beach. One morning, we all got up after a partying weekend, and I was hungover, and I think everybody else in the house was too. And suddenly, we couldn't find Howard. And he was across the street talking to a young man who was several years younger than him. But for 3 hours, this young man talked to my brother Howard about Jesus and about what it means to be born again, etc. Even though we were raised in the Methodist Church, we had never had a personal relationship with Jesus, either of us. So after I got saved, I kept going to Howard too with the same kind of messages. In fact, one afternoon, he even said, I don't want to hear any more about Jesus. And he grabbed me by my back of my shirt and my jeans, and he pushed me through the door and down the stairs and said, that's it. I don't want to hear any more about Jesus. Well, here's where his story begins. One afternoon, I was off. I was living down in Manhattan Beach at the time, and I'm just piddling around the house, and suddenly the doorbell rings. So I go down, I open the door, and there stands my brother Howard, bleeding all down his arm. His clothes were sheared away. His leg pants were sheared away. He was bleeding everywhere. Well, I'll let him tell you what happened. And then you'll know the story of Howard.
Hi, I'm Howard. I'm the object of that story that Rebecca was telling. You know, the pick her up and throw her out of the apartment story. Yeah, that's me. The difficult part of being male is that you're basically lost no matter what. Even if you've been raised in the church or you're pretty solid kid, males are lost between about 17 or 18 until about 30. And that's just common. And guys fill their life with all kinds of things. And so that was me, fill my life. Love my family, love my growing up, but now I need to take care of life myself, find my own way. And that took me from Michigan after graduation from college all the way to Redondo Beach, California, the good life. And that's where my story sort of begins there, as far as Rebecca's bleeding story on her, in her living room. But I guess the important part, and I would call this twists, turns, and slides, might be the best way to describe where Howard was. I was sitting in a fraternity house sometime in the late 60s, and we had special dinners there. And you always had to dress in a suit and a tie, if you can believe that, in the 60s. So we had suit and ties on, and this young man was sitting at the dinner table with a brown corduroy jacket, sport coat on, nice slacks, open collar shirt. And the president of our fraternity introduced him and said, this young man would like to talk with you all tonight. So we're not going to have a businessman. We're going to have this man talk to you. And he stood up and he said, introduced himself. I don't remember his name, but he said, I'm from Campus Crusade for Christ. And he said, I want to tell you a little bit about my life and how it changed with a relationship with Christ. And it was probably the briefest testimony I've ever heard since. And here we are, a bunch of fraternity guys in the 60s, hearing this articulate, good-looking, well-dressed young man who didn't look like the typical 60s guy. And he shared how his life had been changed by Christ. And he said, "Thank you very much. I'd like to pray for you." And he did, which was okay. The guys dutifully bowed their head and he prayed. It was a precious prayer when I look back on it. It was very brief, but so heartfelt. And then he got up after he finished praying for all of us, and he excused himself and left. Well, those are the pondering moments. What in the world was that guy talking about? What was this Jesus stuff all about? So life just continues. Nobody fed me. The lifestyle of a young man continued, searching. The day we graduated from college, a friend of mine and myself got in his 68 Oldsmobile convertible and we drove to California. And I was fortunate to get a job. You got to have money in California, even in the 60s. And so I got the job in a private school. There I am teaching in a private school. Oh my goodness, what an adventure. But still lost. And the twists and turns were, how do I teach in a Christian school, being a heathen that I am, and hearing God almost every day through the priests, through the teachers. But God was twisting and turning my life to force me to confront who I am and where I'm going in my life. Well, one thing that happened in there was that there is something very incredible about a motorcycle. A motorcycle is extremely sensory. It fills your whole being as you ride a motorcycle. It fills your mind, your ears, you hear these noises, you smell like you've never smelled before, fuel, trees, flowers, water, you smell all those things. So a friend had shown me a motorcycle, I rode it, I bought it. It was one of those beautiful little, excuse me, Honda, I think it was a 500 Honda, 450, 500 Honda. It was a chopper. It was extended forks, all cut, peanut tank, fast, noisy, and everything I'd ever heard about motorcycles was fulfilled. Every time I stepped on that motorcycle, I was totally free from ever having to confront anything about who I was lost in on a motorcycle. After a couple of years of teaching, I had to get away, and the motorcycle was my getaway. I left my job. I drove up to Canada on my motorcycle. I drove partway across Canada. I put my motorcycle on a train and went to Winnipeg, Canada, got my motorcycle back off the train and went down through International Falls into Michigan. It was gorgeous, gorgeous fall in Michigan. Again, fantastic. My days, my nights were filled with adventure and speed and fun and all of the crazy things of the 60s and early 70s. Well, when you find yourself in Ohio in a snowstorm on a motorcycle, you realize that the charm has left. There's no more fun in riding a motorcycle in the snow. So I found myself saying, I've got to get out of here. But it's now snowstorm, it's beginning to be winter in the Midwest. How do I get back? to California. I got to get back to California, which I did. Put my motorcycle on a freight truck, and I got on a plane. I had a few dollars left over from my adventures, and I flew back to California and waited for my motorcycle. Well, I knew one person in California that would always have open arms for me, Rebecca. So I went and spent some time with Rebecca, got another job back in education, began working at LA County Schools office under Title III, Creative and Innovative Projects for Education. Again, twists and turns. That job led me on incredible adventures in education, which flavored my entire career for working and making money. But again, my motorcycle arrived, and the seduction of the motorcycle returned, and the lost Howard continued riding and being crazy and enjoying the Southern California, Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, all of those things. Well, at one point, between Rebecca, her stories, and me throwing her out of my apartment, my older sister, Linda, finally said to me, Howard, I want to introduce you to the new me. I've been born again, and I want to tell you about it. Along with that young man from Campus Crusade for Christ, along with the snowstorm in Ohio, brought me up short. And one night I accepted Christ in my bedroom, accepted him as my personal savior. I said, if you're there, I want to know it like I've never known anything in my life. And the tears came. I was born again. But boy, the lifestyle of Southern California, the beach is so alluring that now I have what Charlie and the Chocolate Factory might be called Little Charlie. I had my golden ticket. Yay, I can go to heaven. Remember that forgiveness stuff? So it doesn't really make any difference what I do in my life. I just simply say, forgive me, Lord, it's all done with. I'm good to go. Oh my gosh, how lost was I in playing games with God. Boy, he was not going to let me play games. If I was his child, he was going to have to discipline me just like a loving father would do. Discipline his son. Well, back and forth, up and down the beach, I went with my motorcycle. And one day, driving down Highland, which is right next to the beach in Manhattan Beach, going north, I was speeding, going way too fast. And it turns in El Segundo, that road, Highland, turns into Vista Del Mar. Vista Del Mar follows all the way up near LAX, near the airport. Well, as I was riding too fast, again, enjoying the life, a voice said to me, go home. Now, it was fairly audible, but it was clear, go home. Well, the nearest street to going home was called Imperial Highway. And Imperial Highway goes back towards LAX. So I turned and I was speeding again, a great motorcycle, speed, quick, just wonderful. So I went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gears as fast as I could, thinking I would go up to Pacific Coast Highway, take a right, and go home. I would be this semi-obedient child and heed the voice that said, go home. Well, I saw way up in front of me, near the Hyperion power plant, I saw a Conrock gravel truck from the back. And he had moved from the right lane to the left lane. And I said to myself, oh, he's probably going to LAX on my left. So I could see him way ahead of me, plenty of time. I would zoom past him like he was standing still on the right. Well, captured my imagination briefly was a plane taking off from LAX right over the ocean. And it kind of captured they're very mesmerizing to watch a plane take off. So I'm aware of there's a Conrod gravel truck ahead of me in the left lane, and I'm in the right lane. And I'm going probably 55, 60, 65 now as I'm heading now directly east. And I'm watching that plane until it passed me. And then I watched the road again. Well, when I looked at the road, I realized in a flash, in a moment, he was making a right turn from the left lane. He was a tandem Conrod gravel truck, a highboy, they're called. He was making a right turn, and he made that turn while I was watching the plane. And now my hand was on the throttle. I was going as fast as I wanted to go. And I looked up, and my road was completely blocked by that truck making a right turn in front of me. At that moment, I looked at the side of the truck. That was my last memory, was looking at the side of the truck. And I saw, okay, now this is in Howard's mind now. It wasn't there. I saw in neon lights, JESUS across the entire truck. Just like Las Vegas. Jesus, 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 Jesus. And I could not go right. There's a huge chain link fence. I can't go left because there's a big culvert between the two 4 lanes. I laid the motorcycle down, or somebody laid the motorcycle down. Now, I'm not that good a rider, and I'm not that smart or that clever to lay a motorcycle down in the middle of the road at 60 miles an hour. But I slid. The motorcycle began to slide, and I'm on my right side. I don't feel anything. I just feel the motorcycle sliding. And I saw a wheel from that 18-wheeler go by my face. And then I saw another wheel go by my face, just bam, bam, as I went underneath that 18-wheeler. And he was gone. He turned into the Hyperion power plant. He never knew that he just had a motorcycle go underneath him. Zoom, he was gone. And I was laying in the middle of the road. The motorcycle never tumbled. It just slid to a stop. And it was still running. Now, those were the days of no motorcycle helmets required. So all I had on were my sunglasses. And my sunglasses were still on. And I stood up and tipped my motorcycle back up and moved it over to the side of the road. Now we're talking about 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the summer on Imperial Highway, probably 6-8 blocks now from the ocean. Not one car on either side of Imperial Highway, a busy, busy artery to the ocean. Not one car. Nobody saw that. No witnesses. I sat on the side of Imperial Highway, and I figured I was told to go home. I better go home. So my motorcycle was still running. I got on my motorcycle and drove home and showed up at Rebecca's door. You can imagine what you look like when you've been sliding on the freeway at 60 miles an hour. My whole right side leg, arm, was pretty much road rashed. But I could walk and probably somewhat in shock. And Rebecca said to me, "Oh my gosh, what happened to you?" And I said, "Well, maybe a glass of wine, and I can tell you about this." Well, she fixed me up, bandaged my leg a bit. I sold that motorcycle. I knew that I would never ride a motorcycle again, that it was done. It was the substitute escape from the reality that I needed to clean my life up and be serious about this golden ticket that I thought I had, that it was time to serve God, not play games with God. So the job that I said I had with the LA County Schools office led me to my wife. I found her at a workshop. It found a full-time job teaching in the public school. It led me to an administrative course. It led me to becoming a principal in the public schools, a junior high principal, and it led me to another 17 years in education as an administrator in the public schools, making friendships and relationships with Christ the whole time. Lots more stories there, but I think that kind of summarizes what Rebecca was sharing with you. Some strange twists, turns, and an incredible slide that got my attention. Jesus really is real. There's no way I should have escaped without death on Imperial Highway. But you heard my story. I survived. I've been serving Christ ever since. No more insurance policy. Now it's real. Now Jesus is real, and he has been. Thanks, Rebecca. Sure enjoyed telling that story. It's been many years since I shared that.
Wow. And now you know the story of Howard. Twists, turns, and a great slide into the kingdom. Thank you, Brother Howard. I love you. Mwah!